Welcome to Serengeti, Serengeti National Park. I am entering the Serengeti through what they call the Western Corridor. The Western Corridor is essentially a relatively narrow arm of the park. It stretches out from the main part of the park to the west, almost to the shores of Lake Victoria, basically to pick up the Grumeti and the Balageti rivers, which are two very important rivers that drain much of the greater Serengeti ecosystem. And so I believe the park kind of, captured this corridor because of its importance for wildlife and for supporting the huge migratory herds. And bordering either side of this Western Corridor are game reserves to the north and south. So there's actually a much larger chunk of land that's somewhat protected. And what you're seeing here in the foreground out here in the plains are herds of wildebeest. And it's kind of fun to finally see wildebeest again after several weeks or more of not seeing wildebeest. And what's interesting here is that the wildebeest seem to have like two very different lifestyles. One of them is these resident herds that stay here, within kind of a fixed area, and they may do some small seasonal migrations, but they don't do the huge famous migrations up to, into the Masai Mara in Kenya. And there's a bunch of these scattered herds throughout the park that are essentially semi-resident, whereas the bulk of the wildebeest form into those humongous herds that can reach up to 2 million strong, that do the big circular migration from the Serengeti clockwise up into the Masai Mara in Kenya, and then back down into the Serengeti in the south during the breeding season, the wet season. So kind of interesting divergence in these two very different lifestyles for the same species. And the zebra essentially do the same thing. Some of them are part of the big migratory herds, and some of them stay in these smaller residential herds. Okay, this is just my entry into the park, and I thought I'd introduce you to this kind of classic scene of Serengeti Plains. This is the Debaka Plains in the Western Corridor. Alright, bye. I want to show you my campsite in the Western Corridor of Serengeti, along the Grumeti River. And what you can see is a classic grassland savanna. Basically a grassland with scattered trees, mostly acacia trees. And you can probably tell that the grasses are all brown and beat down. There's barely a stalk standing at this point in the dry season, which isn't too surprising because all the grazing animals concentrate here along the river and beat this down, and it just gets progressively more beaten down as the dry season progresses. But it's kind of a classic Serengeti grassland savanna scene where I'm camped under an acacia tree. And what's really cool about this place is there are dozens and dozens and dozens, and I'm not exaggerating, carcasses of buffalo and wildebeest scattered all through these plains. Like every few hundred feet there's a new carcass. In fact, I'll zoom in. There's a buffalo carcass right there. Maybe a little hard to tell, but in the back that's a buffalo carcass. And if you go down to the river from here, which is just behind my campsite, right through those bushes, and there's a big hippo pool, there's another buffalo carcass. So clearly this is prime lion country, because three of their favorite prey species, buffalo, wildebeest, and zebra are all here in concentrations. So with any luck, I will see some lion, maybe even get even luckier and see a hunt. Alright, cheers. Okay, here's an interesting way to spend the morning in the Serengeti. Very small basket. They must only have the pilot and maybe one or two guests. I know Mark and Kirsten did this up on the Masai Mara. And I know it's not cheap, but an interesting way and a fun way to see the Serengeti for sure. Alright, happy sailing, folks. Bye. Small bachelor herd of buffalo in the evening. I hope they're getting ready for the lions tonight. Although chances are the lions wouldn't go after all these bulls, but you never know. Anyways, good luck tonight, guys. Bye. Here's one of those resident herds of buffalo on the Serengeti that doesn't undertake that massive annual migration up to the Masai Mara. And you can see this is a fairly large herd, several hundred individuals, lots of calves, and I believe they just came from a watering hole, so they're all strung out, streaming out from this water hole out onto the plains here. Hopefully you can hear their grunts, growls, whatever you call them. Kind of a classic scene here out on the savannah. And you know what they say about buffalo? Where there's buffalo, there's almost always lion. And I have seen so many buffalo carcasses. Now, lions must just really be keyed in on buffalo here. Okay, cheers. This big bull here is bringing up the rear of this herd. You can hear him. He keeps turning back to face me and give his roaring bark, whatever you call it, as he kind of pushes the herd up onto the plains. And I assume it's because of me and not lions behind me. But he definitely is paying attention to the rear. He's a rear guard for sure. Alright, cheers. buffalo coming out of the water hole. Near the black-backed jackal, who I determined was carrying a piece of a carcass, I also came across a couple spotted hyenas. And makes me think that there's a lion kill nearby, given these scavengers are both so close together. More spotted hyenas, and this one looks like she might actually be pregnant. Kind of very big belly. She's moving very slowly and awkwardly. And here's a young one, not a pup, but certainly a young one. Maybe a 1-year-old. I'm thinking there must be a den site nearby here, given all these hyenas and this potentially pregnant female. See if I can't find it. Good morning, Mr. Spotted Hyena. I am on a hilltop where I plan to wild camp tonight, since nobody seems to know and can tell me where the special campsites are located. So I interpret that to mean camp anywhere you want within this general area. Anyways, this hill sticks up in the middle of these plains, and I'm actually looking west over some classic grassland savanna, and later when the sun goes down I'll show you looking east, which looks very similar, but kind of classic out of Africa scene here. And in the plains behind me are the vast herds of buffalo and the lion and the hyenas and the jackals and the other things that we've seen so far. I'm still hoping to catch a cheetah. I heard through the grapevine from one of the guides that there's a cheetah with cubs somewhere out in this system. So that's kind of my goal. Alright, cheers. Here we have a small pod of happy hippos in one of the pools along the Serengeti River. Cheers. Check out this hippo pool on the Serengeti River. So the Serengeti, as I think I said already, is dried up into a series of pools this time of year. And it concentrates the hippos, among other animals. But that must be 100 or more hippos packed in here. Wow, it's seething with hippos. Okay, see you later. Just encountered our friend, the black-backed jackal. Beautiful, beautiful creature. And he has something. Can't quite tell what that is that he is carrying. Well, whatever it is, have a nice meal. Bye. Well, my search for cheetah so far has been unsuccessful, but I did manage to find this youngish male lion that has a carcass, so he has a kill. It's a little hard to see in this light, but you can see there's the carcass, and I'm gonna have to get closer or use my binos, but it looks like maybe a buffalo calf. And he's I think dragged it into the shade here. I'm going to see if I can get a better angle. Alright, bye. Okay, it's definitely a young buffalo calf that this guy presumably has taken, or maybe the pride took and he commandeered it. In either case, he appears to be here by himself right now, having fed. He's got blood on his lips, around his mouth. So he's still got a bit of meat left on that carcass though, so he might just hang out with this carcass for the next day or so. Pretty incredible. I'm about 30 feet from this guy right now, in the car of course. Alrighty, cheers. Okay, check this out. I continued to, after I saw that male lion with the buffalo calf carcass, I drove around for another hour or so, still looking for cheetah. When I came back through there, he was not there. But I looked for the nearest big kind of shrub that offered kind of cover shade. And what do you think I found there? Just looks like a big shrub with some shade. The kind of shrub you might stop and you have to go to the bathroom, you might go behind that shrub to go to the bathroom. Well, I'll tell you what, next time you think about doing that, you better be very careful, because who do you think is inside there? That is our male lion. See him in there? He has dragged the carcass in and underneath this shrub to stay cool during the middle part of the day. So, boy. Whoa. Okay, I don't know if that was prompted by me or just decided to switch position. We shall see. Oh. Okay, I believe that male has finished with that carcass, and after defecating, which we saw, I continued walking on to the next tree with a shade, flopped down for another rest. So I don't really think I prompted him to move from the shrubs, because didn't seem to be too bothered by me. Doesn't seem to be too bothered right now. But you can see he's kind of breathing pretty heavily, because walking through the sun this time of day is probably hard on these guys, which is why they almost always just find some shade and hang out. But it is common that they will kind of move a little bit. They'll rest, and then they'll get up and move to another little spot and rest, but basically spend most of the middle of the day, or most of the day actually, kind of just resting in the shade, keeping cool. Alright, I believe that's the end of the story for this guy. I'm heading away. Cheers. Epilogue. I forgot to say that this lion probably isn't going to go too far from this general area, because the plains, as you maybe can see in the back there, are just filled with buffalo. So it's like the perfect spot for this guy, especially if he's a lone young male without a pride, to have lots of calves in that herd that he can take down by himself. It's a good spot to be. Okay, cheers. I chased these banded mongoose into this termite mound, abandoned termite mound, and there was two of them trailing behind the troop. And the first one went in, the second one tried to get in, but there wasn't room apparently, so it ran off behind the rest of the troop, although it must be this one's mate because it's waiting for him about 50 yards up through the plain. This guy keeps popping his head out to see if I'm still here, waiting for the coast to be clear, and then he'll have to take off to catch up to the troop. But I'm hoping he's going to pop out and show himself. Banded mongoose. I love these guys, they're really cool. Boy, he really doesn't want to come out with me here. And what's incredible, so I'll pan over and show you down at this tree. I'll zoom in, maybe you can see. So this one's mate is waiting for her below that tree. And once in a while she'll pop up and look this way. See, here she is coming. And that's amazing bond because the rest of the troop has run on. Oh, actually there she is. She's starting to make her way back. That's interesting. But this one is making kind of a wide circle back. Didn't want to abandon its mate. Whereas the rest of the troop is going to run on. They're a good 100 yards up now. That's quite a bond. Alright, I should probably leave so that these two can get back together and join the bigger group. Alright, bye. Okay, I caught up with the, oops, I was going to say I caught up with the rest of the troop, and they all took shelter under this shrub that's growing out of the top of a termite mound. But oop, there goes a bunch of them. But what I was going to say is they actually hadn't gone too far. They went about 50 yards ahead of the other two, and then they stopped and were waiting for him, looking back. So it's quite a little social structure they have and bonding among members of these troops. Oops, here comes some more out of the termite mound. Alright, hopefully the other two will catch up shortly. Alright, bye. And it's fun to see these guys again. It's been several weeks before I last saw an ostrich. And here we have a pair. The dark one in the front, towards the right, is the male, and the one on the left is the female. Alright, cheers. Okay, you guys may know this one now, because we've had it before, but they're still some of my favorite birds. sand grouse, and this is the yellow-throated sand grouse. The end of this hippo pool on the river. Okay, cheers. So here's a almost completely dried up water hole out here on the plains, and we've got a bunch of Thompson's gazelles trying to suck the last little bit of murky water out of it. And what's really cool too for the birders is this huge flock of blacksmith plovers. Usually, you see them in pairs, but huge flock of them here. Alright, here's a Thompson gazelle and a young of the year. Oh, that little baby just got spooked. Dwarf mongoose. Teeny little mongoose. Popping up out of the holes in this termite mound. They're the cutest little things. Probably, I don't know, probably from nose to tip of tail, probably good 10 inches, but the main body's probably only 6 inches. Teeny little things. Whoops. Cheers. It's about 5 p.m. and I'm out on the plains in the Western Corridor, and I'm watching one of 3 different large buffalo herds that I've seen on these plains in the section of the Western Corridor I've been in. And I wanted to clarify something that I said incorrectly earlier. I realized I mentioned the buffalo herd being resident and not partaking in the mass migration, and that is true. The buffalo don't undergo the mass migration up into the Masai Mara and back into the Serengeti over the course of the year. The buffalo more or less have home ranges within which they range. So what I was referring to was the wildebeest. And of course the zebra and the Thompson's gazelles. Those are the three main species involved in the big mass migration up into the Masai Mara. Not the buffalo. So I realized that after the fact. I made that error. And I'm watching this herd right now because one, it's a very large herd. Two, there's a lot of calves mixed in. And three, this morning, as you've seen already, I had the male lion eating a part of a calf, a buffalo calf. So I know the lion's around, and I'm wondering if they're going to be going on a hunt here soon. So I'm kind of hoping that the lions are going to show up here and go on a buffalo hunt, and I'll catch it. But we'll see. I'll have to get lucky for that. Alright, cheers. So I'm at the hilltop, my wild campsite for the night, and sundowner location for the nearby private camp, and a vehicle with some tourists from Brazil just showed up for sundowner. I was sort of expecting it, but this is my view from the hilltop looking east out onto the plains where I spent most of my time today, both morning and evening, watching wildlife, looking for cheetah, but unsuccessfully. And this group that is here yesterday had 4 cheetah, mom and 3 rather old cubs, hunt and take down Thompson gazelle. And they caught it all on video and showed it to me, and I was drooling. It was the very thing I was hoping to see. Pretty incredible. Anyways, pretty amazing sight. Just thought I'd show you the plains once again, looking east. Cheers. Okay, look who's up this morning and on land. Looks like a statue. Trying to decide what to do. He's about 100 yards from the Big Hippo pool. And I don't know that he can't decide what to do. Doesn't have too many scars on his back, or her back. Hasn't been in too many fights. Well, If you're going to be a statue, I guess I'll leave you alone. Alright, cheers. At the hippo pool and near Serenella. And Nancy, Phil, Mary, Bill, and Rick, you may recall this hippo pool. This is the site of the wildebeest crossing and the male lion that attempted to take one but failed. But as you can see, it's the same massive concentration of hippos. And all that splashing you're hearing is them defecating and using their tails to twirl it around as they eject it. So, some pretty nasty water out there. That's a lot of hippo biomass. Cheers. And Skylar, in case you're watching, there's a baby hippo there. Or actually maybe a couple baby hippos in there. I hope they don't get smothered by all the big ones all around them. Such a bizarre sight. Okay, cheers. There's another baby hippo for you. Oh, hey, he didn't stay up very long for me. I also wanted to correct my earlier statement about all the tail splashing. They do, of course, twirl their tail to spread their excrement when they defecate, but I think what a lot of these guys are doing is using their tail to spray water over their backs to keep themselves cool in the heat of the day here. Anyways, there's a fairly young hippo in the back there. This water is about as nasty as you can imagine. And this is a multi-sensory experience here because you gotta smell this place as well as see it and hear it. Alright, so long hippo pool. Cheers. Just a few Thompson's gazelles. This little gazelle, the Tommies, as they say, is the most abundant of the gazelles and perhaps of all the antelope. They are crazy abundant. road crossing. Mama and baby.